How optimistic are you about Texas football, the Longhorn program, over the next 5 years in terms of a championship contender? They've gotten so close the last 2 years, but always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Now they've lost a ton, right? This team is not the same going into 2025 that they have been in 23 or 24. So how do you like the direction of this Texas program? And can you see the Longhorns raising a trophy, a national championship trophy in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic, certainly in the short term. Obviously, with Arch Manning stepping in at quarterback, you really like his talent. So the potential and the ceiling, I think, in the short term, this next year or two, if he's here for 2 more years, I really like their chances. I think Steve Sarkisian has done a great job, him and his staff, with that roster of continuously recruiting high-level talent and building depth. The thing that impressed me the most about this program, especially this year, was they lost 11 draft picks and then went right back to the semifinals in a deeper playoff bracket. That told me how well this team has been recruited and developed. They are not living in the portal. They are picking and choosing 5 to 7 guys and filling gaps where they need to. But otherwise, they are doing it the old-fashioned way: high-level recruiting and develop them and play them when they're ready to play. That's a winning formula. If you're going, I still think that's the way to win. And you're going to supplement and plug your holes in the portal. So that's kind of the new formula. The old way of doing it, of just recruit. But now, whatever holes that you have or whatever misses you have in an evaluation standpoint, you plug them in the portal, and Texas can go to bat with anybody in there because they have a very deep pockets and they have a very well organized collective. So I'm pretty optimistic over them certainly next 2 to 3 years. And then beyond that, I think it's hard to forecast anything beyond that in college football because as quickly as the roster changeover and all that. But I will say this: as long as Steve Sarkisian's there, I feel pretty good, because I think he's kind of hit the stride. You can tell he's got them believing. There's confidence. There's a development plan. And those two coordinators are still there. I mean, he's still got Pete Kwiatkowski. He's still got Kyle Flood. He's still got his quarterback coach in AJ Milwee. This is going to be interesting this year to watch, though, because there is a little bit of staff changeover. He's getting picked off now. I see you got NFL teams coming over, hiring Tashard Choice, and you got other schools trying to pick off his staff. So Blake Gideon went over to Georgia Tech. That is one of the reasons too why Texas has been so successful these last couple of years. They had very little staff movement. They have been able to retain all their guys. The more you win, that harder that is to do. One thing that's a really, really big plus in Steve Sarkisian's corner, Pete Kwiatkowski, not really a guy with head coach aspirations. I talked to him. I did a story on him right before the Cotton Bowl when they played Ohio State, and I spent a lot of time with him at media day before the Peach Bowl against Arizona State. And he said he didn't really have an interest in being a head coach. He likes ball and he wants to teach, and he said now, even he didn't really have a lot of interest in before, and he goes, now with what the head coach's duties are now, a lot of it is not football, a lot of it is administrative. He's like, I'm not really interested in that. So that guy is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. So Steve's going to be able to probably keep him for a long time, unless an NFL team wants to hire him. But unless an NFL team comes calling, PK is probably going to be there for a while. So if you keep your offensive play caller and your defensive coordinator for a while, I like your chances. So I think Texas is in pretty good shape. You got Arch here for a year or two. Then you're going to move on to probably either Trey Owens or KJ Lacey. I love what I saw from Trey in the limited action that we've seen from him. And then KJ, obviously, we'll see, but very highly recruited, Mr. Football in the state of Alabama, really smooth passer, one of the best pure passers out there in the 2025 class. So, and Steve Sarkisian's track record quarterbacks, pretty spotless. So I think you got to feel really good about where they are from a roster standpoint, foundational. And then as we move to the rev share era, they're going to be financially ready to compete, to do whatever they need to do. So I think the fact that they were able to get back and not just make it a one-hit wonder in 23, and they were able to get back and make a run at it again, I think that's built a foundation where they can make a really good long-term run here.
You mentioned Arch Manning a couple of times there, and he's been anointed the chosen one for so long now. So the expectations on Arch Manning, are they fair or overblown headed into 2025?
I think it depends on what your expectations are. If you're expecting him to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country or be an all SEC caliber guy, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair expectation because, look, he was the number one recruit in the country, and we've only seen a limited action of him. But I think if you've watched this game long enough and you know what great quarterbacks look like, he checks a lot of the boxes from arm strength, being able to drive the ball, accuracy, decision making, athleticism. The guy can move. We've seen that with his legs. He's a really good athlete. Big, strong, great frame. And we know he's, because of his pedigree is in the family that he comes from. And then you talk to people around that program, you talk to Sark, you talk to the other players, you know the guy studies the game, you know he knows what he's doing, operating the offense. When I saw from year 1 to year 2, I remember his freshman year, the little bit that we saw of him, you could tell it was moving fast. Mm-hmm. You could tell he was swimming a little bit. And then this year you see him play and it's like, oh, he knows what he's doing now. He knows, and he's willing to take chances too. And that's I think that's going to be the thing that's be interesting with him is I think he's got so much confidence in his ability to drive the ball and get it to where he needs to get. He's going to try and force in some windows, which may lead to some picks from time to time. So I'm going to be fascinated to see what that balance is. But I think that's fair. Now, if you're expecting him to step in this year and win the Heisman and be the number one pick in 2026 draft, let's pump the brakes. He's only started a couple of games. He's going to make mistakes. He doesn't have a ton of game reps. He's got a lot of development. He's been lying in the weeds for 2 years. He got a little bit of seasoning this year as the backup with a couple starts and some spot action here and there. But look, he's a young quarterback, and young quarterbacks in college football are going to make mistakes. They're going to throw picks. They're going to maybe have a loss or two. It's going to happen. I think as a viewing public, I think we get carried away sometimes with how quickly we want to anoint quarterbacks. I think of how quickly Oklahoma pulled the plug on Jackson Arnold. I think of how quickly things turned over there for another quarterback of that program, Spencer Rattler. You look at some of the freshmen that get thrown into the fire quickly. You even look at it in the NFL. You look at first-round draft picks and how quickly they get thrown into fire, and then guys pull the plug on them. I think we do a disservice to quarterbacks sometimes, and Arch had the great fortune of being able to not start right away and sit and learn and develop, and I think that's going to do so much for him. So I don't think would it shock me, I guess, if he blew it out and ended up being the Heisman winner in 2025? I guess not, but I'm expecting him to be a really good quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in the country. I think when you look at the talent that's going to be around him, his natural ability, the guy calling plays for him, the scheme, the whole nine, I think it's fair to expect him to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country this year.
It's a good thing I haven't built this brand on clickbait and funny TikToks, because that was way too level-headed. If that's how I was building that, that's way too well reasoned there, Sam. No, I could not agree with you more. I think your analysis, even touching on the development and the issue that the NFL is having with their quarterbacks, I think is spot on. Different topic for a different pod. Last question for you on Texas, and this was one that a listener submitted. Is Texas and Oklahoma still like the premier rivalry down here in college football? Because Oklahoma has not showed up a couple times lately.
Yeah, I think so. Just because the history the continuous history is so long, and Red River is still such an event. I look forward to it every year. It doesn't matter if one team is good and one team is not. It's just special, man. Going to the state fair, going to the Cotton Bowl, the old Cotton Bowl, not the game, the stadium, which is a little bit old and decrepit, but it's still standing. You can still see it when you get on 75 or 45 South. When I'm heading back to Houston, you can see the Cotton Bowl from the highway as you're leaving downtown Dallas, and you see Fair Park. I love the event itself. I hope it never changes, because if it ever got moved from there, or if it ever went away, I'd be really sad, just because there's just a feeling when you walk on the fairgrounds for that game. It's unlike anything else. But yeah, from a competitive standpoint, this is a huge year for OU. They've got to turn it around. Two 2 years of 6-win seasons in the span of 3 years. Oklahoma's not used to being bad. They're not used to being mediocre. They're used to winning. They're used to winning and contending for titles. And so this is going to be a big year for them. But no, it's still, to me, Texas OU is still the big one. But the return of Texas A&M was much needed. I hate that it was gone for 13 years. It was unfortunate. It was unnecessary, in my opinion. But hard feelings went into play, and a lot of nonsense in the interim. And I'm glad we got it back. It was one of the most memorable experiences to be there at Kyle Field for the reunion of that game in November, on November 30th. I loved it. The atmosphere was electric. It's going to be electric next year when they go back to DKR. I can't wait to be at it at that time. So I'm glad that that's back. But yeah, I think Texas and OU still is number one on the list.
Gracious him! How about that?